Let's delve deeper into this ongoing complex issue on the Strait of Hormuz. I can welcome to the studio our international affairs editor, Kethevane Gorjestani. Kethevane, good to have you with us. Walk us through, if you will, how this blockade is supposed to work at this stage, at least.
Well, look, what we know of what exactly the United States wants to do is through CENTCOM, Central Command, giving a little bit of details as to what they mean by a blockade. So the idea in their announcement, their official announcement, is that they will be targeting vessels of all nations that are entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas, meaning not just the ports, but really all of the coastal areas of Iran, including, they say, all the ports on the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. But they do insist, as you mentioned, in that same statement, that it will not be targeting the vessels transiting through the Strait of Hormuz to and from non-Iranian ports. That's the official announcement by CENTCOM. And when you look at the region, when you look at the map of the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Oman, and the Strait of Hormuz, you see that there are quite a few Iranian ports in that region. These are some of the main ones, including, we talked a lot about Kharg Island, which is Iran's main oil export hub, Bandar Abbas, which is the big port that is sitting on the Strait of Hormuz, but also Chabahar, which is the southernmost major port that is on the Gulf of Oman, and therefore the closest directly heading towards the Indian Ocean. But CENTCOM, in its announcement, also said that they would send a formal notice to the commercial sort of fleet before the start of the blockade, and Reuters, the news agency, got its hands on that formal notice to those ships, where it says that any vessels without authorization will be subject to interception, diversion, and capture. Also insisting it won't be limited to ports and oil terminals, meaning basically that any ship that comes near that blockade will be a target, and also adding that humanitarian shipments will be allowed to go through following inspection. Humanitarian shipments, those are food, medical supplies, and other essential goods. We have also a truth post by the U.S. president just a few minutes ago saying that every boat from the Iranians will be seen as a threat to the United States, and therefore the United States will be immediately eliminating any Iranian boat that gets close to them. He says, using the same system of kill that we used against the drug dealers on boats at sea, seemingly referencing what happened in around Venezuela, where the United States was going after drug dealing boats. But of course, Iran is not Venezuela. The Gulf region is not the area around Venezuela, and this is way more complicated.
Complicated and, of course, risky, a very risky approach there. But walk us through what it seems Americans are trying to achieve, again, at this stage.
Well, look, the idea, obviously, is to ramp up pressure on the Iranians by choking off Iran's capacity to sell its oil, because you have to remember that Iran has managed to continue exporting millions of barrels of oil since the start of the war. And that, of course, with the higher oil prices, has meant that they have had quite a bit of revenue still coming in thanks to those exports. So obviously, this is going to be a problem for Iran if now the Americans manage to block off all the tankers that have been allowed through by the Iranians. But there are a few issues with the U.S. strategy. One, the blockade could impact some of U.S. partners that have been involved directly in the mediation between the United States and Iran. For example, Pakistan, they have had a deal with the Iranians to let through some tankers, so they're counting on that oil, so they could be one of the first to see the consequences. Secondly, the U.S. can say that it will not allow ships to go to Iranian ports, but allow ships to go to and from non-Iranian ports. But that doesn't mean the Iranians are going to let them through. And the Iranians still have a way of threatening the Strait of Hormuz, especially. And the Iranians can continue to target those tankers. So you wouldn't need, if you're a tanker, to take the risk of saying, well, the Americans are allowing me, but the Iranians might target my ship. So that is still a problem that is not going away with the U.S. Blockade. In order to implement the blockade, also, the United States will have to get a little closer and a little bit more within reach of possible Iranian missiles, Iranian drones. So that could still be a threat. Iran has already warned, as you said, that they would probably retaliate in the region, saying that no port in the region will be safe. So they might do exactly the same to other nations around the Persian Gulf. If both the United States and Iran do get their way and manage to blockade or block the Strait of Hormuz and the whole region, well, oil prices that have already gone very, very high will probably continue to go even higher, and that will be a problem for everyone. There is always the threat of Iran that is sort of hanging in the balance, but everyone is not exactly talking about it right now. But if the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf region is completely blocked by the Americans and by the Iranians, there's always the threat of the Houthis, the proxies of the Iranians in Yemen, that they could block Bab el-Mandeb, which is another crucial, vital waterway. And if those two were closed at the same time, that will be a huge problem for global shipping.
All right, Kethevane Gorjestani, thank you very much indeed.